I slept in High Point Solution Stadiums for a whole summer.
I think we live in a time where spirituality is at an all-time low.
I've always chased him and everything he did. So anything he did, I did behind him. And I want to be better than him at everything. So.
To help your kid in any kind of sense, because you've been so unplugged from their academic journey.
All right. This is always, but what we say, we want to do an intro no more? We just want to start talking?
I would put that into this episode as the beginning.
We should. Just so everyone knows. Yeah, just so everyone knows. Yeah. Forget an intro. Let's just start talking. They're going to know who you are by the end of this.
For sure.
So how you doing? Nice to meet you.
Great day.
New friend. I'm happy to build this relationship. This is my favorite episodes tend to be the ones where I meet somebody and we don't really know each other.
Right.
Because then you can go back and you're watching a friendship like develop.
For sure.
On camera, and it's just so different. I enjoy it.
I dig it.
So it's been nice to meet you. I've learned so much in just the 12 hours that I've known you. Very intelligent person. I'm happy to do this with you. Yeah. So we don't really have a format. Like I don't really just have like certain questions I ask. I do ask one question because it's a question that kind of started my podcast, and it's what is one of the hardest things that you've ever been through in your life?
Sure.
And what are the processes and the things that you learned to get through that? So we'll get into that a little later.
All right.
And then I don't ask this question all the time, and I don't really ask it on air ever, but I want to ask you, because there's episodes where I can tell I'm going to do a lot of listening, and I'm going to do a lot of talking, and the ones where I know I'm going to listen, I like to ask, at the end of this, for you to be like, damn, I had fun, I talked about all the things that I wanted to talk about, it was great. Like I would want to do it again. Like, what would you cover? What would that be for you?
Man, anything that helps give life to young people, especially, that's my passion. Anybody that's trying to achieve something that other people tell them is ridiculous, right. That's my jam. That's my wheelhouse.
Oh yes, sir. That's fantastic. So I guess my first question would be: you're from Michigan.
Yep.
Played football at Michigan State.
I was on the team. Briefly.
So how did you get into football and that whole journey to get to Michigan State? What was that like for you?
Super late bloomer, man. I was a really good wrestler, really good wrestler.
You want to go into wrestling?
No, I just didn't appreciate the way I did. And so at my high school, the number one player in America went to my high school. His name was Josh Thornhill. He was Nick Saban's first ever 5-star recruit. Everybody would come to our high school, Bobby Bowden, Lou Holtz, like all the legendary coaches were trying to get this kid. And he was a really good friend of mine. And I think our team was legendary. We had the best team in the history of my high school. My high school's 108 years old, Lansing Eastern.
Oh, wow.
I think in the 9-game regular season schedule, I think we shut out 7 teams and 2 other teams scored 6 points on us.
Wow, that's great.
And so,
y'all were good.
Yeah, and on that defense, we had 3 or 4 guys go D1 and 3 or 4 guys go D2. So I kind of hustled my way an opportunity to be a walk-on at Michigan State as a fullback. And ended up being a runoff. That's the story I tell people. Is I was a walk-on and a runoff. The strength and conditioning coach there, who was one of the most influential people in my life, when I was there, I wasn't in a position to kind of be led by someone that intense, and I would just constantly make all the mistakes that, allowed me to participate in all the unique punishments that Michigan State can do. And so one day, we're running 110s in the stadium. Spartan Stadium used to be turf, old nasty turf. This is in the late 90s. It was 120-some degrees down there. And on the 17th or 18th one, I was like, I don't want to do this no more. And I ran up into the stands. One of the veterans on that team, Robert Smith, who ended up having a long playing career, came and got me and was like, don't quit, blah, 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 run one more. And I went down with him and ran out. I ran out one more. And ran out of the back of the stadium.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because 110s will do that to you.
Boy, and it's just different. And we were only supposed to do 16, but so something happened that day, that got him riled up. They ended up doing 24 of them.
Yeah.
And so my position group as a fullback, they call it big power at Michigan State. So fullbacks, tight ends, linebackers. I think we were doing those in 17 seconds and getting about 17 seconds rest. So. I mean, you're in an emotionally fragile state after 10,
right?
And you can usually will your way to the next 6. But when we got to 17, and by the way, I knew it was one of those days where they were going to go. And so I didn't think they'd get into the 20s, but they did. But I was in the air conditioner by then.
Yeah, for sure. So was that like your first practice?
No. This
wasn't your first one?
No. This was like going into the summer of the year after I graduated high school. So it was literally, I think it was probably, anyone watching this, don't hold me to the dates, but I think it was like a week or two before the two-a-days the year after my freshman year.
Okay, so you made it a whole.
I was on through all the way through. I didn't come in the fall because of grades. I had some issues. I had all the special kids stuff, right. And so I was with them from like March to August.
Okay.
Yeah. So no games. I would have been. I could have seen myself now as like a 4-year guy that could have played some special teams and done some stuff. I went to Ferris and had a pretty good career, and we were pretty good. Okay. Ferris State's Division II.
Okay, so you did end up playing college ball.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's lit.
Yeah, so I always joke that Coach Manny made it possible for me to be the first transfer portal person in the program.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Later on in life, I would meet him, though. It's crazy. My sister, unfortunately, passed away of cancer. And I would just, when I have these troubling things, I don't know why, I would email him. Or if I overcome something or something good in my life, I would email him. And I wasn't one of his guys. Like, he's revered. People love him. Like, he's at people's weddings. And he would always respond. And I thought there was so much grace. I later learned that he had forgot about the whole thing, though. The day before I got married, my wife and I ended up over at his house one night.
Really?
Yeah. And he just didn't even remember the story. And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
It was such a monumental event in my life that I ran out of there. But it was so inconsequential, it didn't matter to him. When he retired, I wrote a thing on LinkedIn that kind of went viral in the Spartan community. And he sent me like one of the best letters back. Like, this is why all this stuff happens, to give you perspective.
Right. So would you go back and stay?
No, I'm big on, we don't know each other that well, but we kind of talked off camera. I'm really big on, this is my one life.
Right.
Yeah, and all of it had to go down this way. Yeah. And so what I would have got being a walk-on at Michigan State versus what I ended up getting in life it's not even comparable.
Right. No, for sure. That's always a weird perspective to like look at and see, because people ask me all the time, they're like, because I have a kid. Yeah. And that changed everything for me. If I didn't have a kid, I probably would have gotten a job, like a sport management job somewhere, went corporate, not tried to start my own businesses and stuff so early. And people ask me, like, would you go back and make sure you didn't have a kid? And it's kind of like, I don't know.
You're not sure?
I don't know. I mean, it's different.
Real talk, yeah.
Like, I mean, the end of, so like, I basically raised my son by myself. Like during football season, so he came during COVID, or he was born during COVID, 2021 or 2020, September 2020, and so like the following football season, my mom would come up from Atlanta and she basically stayed with me and babysat and did all that stuff, and I kind of like that would be the only time where I'm like that would be for me, because I just made it more difficult trying to play football that last season and basically raising a kid by yourself. But like even so, like I love my son so much, I don't think I would trade footballs like a few more tackles for
sure.
You know what I'm saying? So like I get that.
Stuff when you look back becomes inconsequential. There's a famous Steve Jobs quote that you can only connect the dots when you're further enough down the line. You have to look back and be like, oh, this is why this happened. I had a daughter when I was in 10th grade, Ashley. She's 27 now. And she has a daughter. So I'm a grandpa at 43.
Congrats.
And one of the things that I became acutely aware of is through the process of having her, which was very challenging in a variety of ways. Luckily, we didn't have the income stuff because her grandparents on the other side they were stable and well off. And, her mom graduated college, I graduated college. Some of that stuff that normal young kids have to deal with a teen pregnancy, we didn't have to deal with.
Right.
But a really interesting thing that happened is when 9/11 happened, I realized because that I had a decent opportunity if I could have got my grades right to wrestle at Navy or do one of these. Much better wrestler than a football player.
Okay.
In fact, 2 days ago, before I came down here to Georgia, I just had lunch with the Michigan State heavyweight from that era. I used to go to Michigan State wrestling room. I never was even on the team officially, but I went every day and practiced with this guy because, he was so good. And some of the other guys in the room, they couldn't deal with somebody like that. So even when I ran off that day, then later that day, I went into the Michigan State wrestling room. Luckily, it's way far off campus. But I say all that to say this, like, you know, it's not lost on me that I would have had to go to war, you know, if I didn't have a daughter, you know.
Right.
And, you know, it's not to assume the worst of that, but there's not a lot of good things that come out of going to war. So
Right.
she kept me out of that. She's the reason I didn't go wrestle. My best D1 opportunity in wrestling was at North Carolina State. And if I would have went down there, you know, who knows if I ever get back to Michigan and
Right.
connect with my family. And then my sister got sick and passed away. So everything happened the way it was supposed to happen, and he kept me local for a while.
Right. So how was college D2 ball for you? You enjoy it?
It's great. Honestly, it was better. There's like a weird. It's kind of fun playing with a bunch of guys who just missed.
Yeah.
You know, and it's sometimes the same way at small. I work with a ton of colleges, working football and working in the NFL, and even when I meet the guys in the NFL that are small college guys, there's just something different about them. Like that, you just get something. You get a kind of an earn it ability that's just different. What's luckily though is like, you know, First State just won the national championship last year and the year before in football, D2. In the 90s, we went to the Final Four. It's like it's a powerhouse. So it's a really high level football experience. The training table with steak and all this stuff. You know, it's like it's
as close to the D1 experience as you can get for D2.
Yeah, I feel like that. But again, you know, there's nuance that I'm not aware of. But from my perspective, yeah, I mean, it's high level ball. We had 3 guys go to the NFL on my college team, as an example.
Oh yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. David Ziderveen came down here with the Falcons. Clarence Coleman ended up with the Buffalo Bills, and one other guy ended up with the Packers. Can't think of his name right now, but he ended up being a really good. Pardon me. He ended up being a really good player. Carlton Brewster. He's a little younger than us, but Ferris sends guys to the NFL. They had a guy get drafted. You know, like
wow, yeah.
You know, so Ferris is a pretty big deal as far as D2. But for me, all of that, looking back, it's weird. I have this like condition where I look back on everything as like it's so inconsequential.
Yeah.
Like
it's not.
Michigan State spring game tomorrow is I just mean like it's just these small experiences that we over magnify, in my opinion. Like Michigan State spring games tomorrow, I'll be going to that and hanging out, and I'll see these young guys living the best time of their lives, but there'll be other best times too.
Right.
You know, so football, it's weird working with pro football. It's such a small part of my life. I didn't even watch one whole NFL game or one whole college game last year. Not one.
Wow.
Yeah, I watched a half of the Super Bowl, and I watched the second half of the Super Bowl, and I watched the first couple quarters of Michigan State until that one got out of hand.
So you just don't watch ball? Like you don't? Are you so busy?
Have
like I get it. I didn't,
I
didn't really watch a lot of football this year either with everything we have going on. So I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. Especially when you get older, it just seems a little bit more trivial.
Well, the thing is, it's hard. Like that's 3 hours.
Yeah.
Now I used to not miss a game from Thursday night action to Monday night football, like for years and years and years until most of my 30s. But now it's just the time commitment of 3 hours is just like crazy. Like, it's a lot. And what do I get from a diehard Patriots fan? The Indianapolis Super Bowl a few years back, I left the game. They lost to the Giants for the second time.
Right.
I was legitimately depressed.
Yeah.
And that was the last time I was like, I can't be 2 feet in on this as a fan anymore. Like for like probably 6 or 7 days, when I would close my eyes, I would be like, damn, why didn't Wes Welker catch that ball?
Okay. So what have you started filling your time with now? Like of course family, kids, and
so I'm a person super busy. I work in corporate America. I run a company. I'm a key vendor for another company. I do keynote speeches. I'm out of the house like crazy. You know, I tell people like, you know, there's a lot of days I take an airplane to work. And what I mean by that is like, that's a huge time commitment of itself. I have to drive from Lansing to Detroit. You know, I might fly to Jacksonville and work with the Jaguars for an hour and then fly back to Michigan.
Right, yeah.
And so, you know, when I can sit down on an airplane, I'll watch a show. I'll spend some time doing something. But usually what I do is I'm replying to stuff. My phone is, while we're doing this, I'm getting buzz on the drive over here. When we got to this, when we got here, I had 37 unopened emails. So, you know, I'll respond to all of those. I try to give everybody else my time. When somebody asks me for something, I try to be a resource. Right. You say, let's roll over here, boom. It's no question for me. Like, yes, you know, I
appreciate it so much.
I just want to add value. Yes, and we got less time here than we think. Yeah. So, you know, if you can help somebody, you got to, in my opinion. You know, I talked yesterday at the Live Sports Symposium about it's our duty. So I really carry that with me. It's not doublespeak for me. It's not like a quotable.
Yeah. Where did that come from?
I think that just survival's guilt. It didn't happen for my sister.
Right.
It didn't happen for my mom. My mom worked at Denny's. That was her real job. She wasn't doing that to get through school or do anything else. And like, you know, I had a fortunate break that then gave more fortunate breaks. And then I figured out how to make my own luck.
Right.
And it didn't happen for everybody else. And so I really realized, like, you know, you really got to have a couple things go right for you to do it really big, like to do something crazy. And so to be a catalyst for that is like, for me, that's my oxygen.
Right.
Like, you know, like I was telling you, I just met a guy today that I don't even know what we'll do. I know we're going to create a business together. I know that will happen. As certain as I can tap this table and feel it, and it'll create opportunities for other people. Cause I just had that happen so many times over and over.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just becomes one of those things like, hey, my whole thing could have gone the other way if I didn't catch this one break. Right. And then it's 50-50 I didn't catch that second break. But by the third break, I was like, oh, I know how to do it now. I know how to get in the room and make it happen.
Right. Yes, sir.
And then after that, I'm like, oh, I know how to bring somebody with me. You know, it's corny, but they say it's lonely at the top. But that's not true. Like, if you can't get other people there, it's lonely at the top. But I know I can get other people there.
Yes, sir. So how did you get into working with NFL teams and players?
Yeah, I was on an elevator one day in my office in downtown Detroit. Hit the button, you know, you get on the elevator and you can feel somebody out there, but you're not trying to rock with them. So you push the button real quick to close. So I'm like, tap, 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 trying to get this thing to close. And the biggest hand I ever saw goes in and makes the elevator open back up. And it was Ndamukong Suh.
Oh, wow.
He had just been drafted by the Lions. He had never played a play, and he was there to see the chairman of our company, Dan Gilbert. And when I got to my office, I'm talking to people, and somebody knew that he was coming. They were like, yeah, he's one of these guys that's already thinking about his life after football. Like, he wants to, while he's hot and he has this big name, he wants to meet all the people that can help him make all these other dreams come true. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I knew right then I would do that for work at some point. I knew right then because I knew I could articulate what he was doing and inspire other people to do it. Yeah, yes, sir. So then I was at a camp one time explaining kind of just like how, you know, when sports is over, you know, there's two people. There's people that it's their peak experience in life, and there's other people that it eventually fades and becomes inconsequential, like for me. And a guy heard that story and he was like, hey, I want you to come speak to my athletes. I say, yeah. By the way, I'm just a yes person. I say yes by default. And I said yes. And his athletes happen to be pro athletes.
Okay.
And then from there, once you're in that ecosystem, it led to,
just grows. I
went from the Dolphins to the Jets to the Giants, Colts, Panthers, Rams, Jaguars. Like, before I knew it, I stopped taking on new teams.
Okay. So you obviously enjoy it to be.
Yeah, I did. I mean, one of the things is the nostalgia does roll off. Like, I've just been so lucky to have like wild experiences. Cam Newton and Andrew Luck, Odell Beckham Jr., Saquon Barkley, Lamar Jackson,
right, yeah.
Jarvis Landry. Like, I've been in the room with them and shown them how to make this thing shake outside of football and leverage their access. And then pretty soon it's like, you know, I had Trevor Lawrence, and I thought that was an interesting one because I think there's probably more pressure on him to win a championship than maybe anyone since LeBron, like, because he was the guy, since they knew in sixth grade. Yeah. Mm. And so after him, it's like, dang, what would be next after that? Like, you know, like, who's going to have more pressure than him? And so the nostalgia of it is worn off, and it's more like, dang, it's a pain in the ass. On the May 18th, I got to go to the Jaguars, and I'm presenting at 3:30. This is really happening. I'm presenting at 3:30. Then I have to sprint out of there. I get 45 minutes with the guys. I got to be back at Jacksonville Airport by 5:45, or I'm going to miss my flight to Atlanta. If I miss my flight to Atlanta, I got to stay the night in Atlanta to get to Detroit. It's like all of that starts to seem like more work. What I like more is I'm involved with some groups that do business accelerators, immersion stuff. We bring athletes in to a hotel for 4 or 5 days and bring all the people, and that's what PAC is. And that's founded by one of my best friends, Caleb, and his business partner, Chip. That's what I'm into now. Like, put people in a room with the actual decision makers. Let's teach them something. Yep. Let's make it shake and make them go do the work and unlock like these other areas where they can be, like I talked about yesterday, be number one in the world in something again.
Yeah. Yes, sir. No, I like that. One of the things that we want to do, so like with me being a motivational speaker and life coach, I want to eventually start hosting events
Yeah.
for people, like different events, and bring in someone who's intelligent on stocks, someone who knows about real estate, someone who knows about just things in general, a couple motivational speakers, mental health people, and like just house like networking events.
That's exactly what we do.
So yeah, we
have to get. So we do. We just left one last week at the Hilton in Fort Lauderdale. Come in on Sunday, do a welcome reception, introduce them to all the people that are going to be speaking, and then one by one the speakers do their things, and then it ends in a networking event where they can put everything together.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
that's a good. I love doing that kind of stuff. I think that's really how you grow. And
yeah, it's this tacit learning idea, which is like one of the hats I wear in life is I'm on the Board of Education in Michigan, and getting elected to that, everybody was like, why do you want to do that? It's all political. There's all this other stuff. But one of the things I realized is like, if we don't get to like back to technical education, especially for Black and brown people, the robots are coming. ChatGPT, all this stuff that can replace like the jobs that we take normally, culturally.
Yes, sir.
If we don't get people filling up these plumbing jobs or these like electrician jobs, if we don't end up owning that space,
it's going.
We're gonna have a real serious problem. Like the economic condition of, specifically, I care a lot about Black folks is all people, by the way, because people don't know me, and I don't want that to sound crazy, but I know that it means more to a kid that comes from my neighborhood, Cranbrook Housing Projects, that this is happening for me, and I didn't make it to the NFL or something special like that. I really want them to understand that technical learn it and go do it is a lot more valuable than, in my opinion, not know what you're going to do, go to school for 4 years, get a communications degree, and not have anything like lined up. Like tacit and technical learning is like my jam.
Yes, sir. It's crazy you bring up the AI and the ChatGPT thing, because my biggest thing was when I see people talk about it, it's usually the people who are going to get replaced by it that are supporting it. And I'm just kind of like, do you not understand like what is coming?
Yeah.
Like to see McDonald's have a McDonald's with no people in it. I'm like, so let's break down and think about the people who are working there.
For sure.
So now the people who are probably working there and they have a kid or two or whatever it might be, now they're getting replaced by a robot. So where are they going to go work now?
I just don't think they will. There's a wild conversation going with really smart tech people. And I'm lucky because I'm not qualified to be in a lot of these rooms, but I've been lucky to have access to like some of the people that really make the country move. Like literally the guy that hands the check to the guy that starts Uber. Like I'm with him at dinner like a week and a half ago. And that's not a flex for me. I don't belong in that room, but I just, again, I've caught some breaks along the way and somebody's like, yo, you want to come meet this guy? But inside those rooms, the conversation that most people are having that the country's not ready for, because it's a weird political thing, is that we'll have to move to universal basic income for a bunch of people very soon, because the new job creators right now are people that can eliminate jobs.
Right.
And then when that happens and automation comes in, there will be a need for authentication. And then that will be a little job creation thing where who can determine if this was a robot or this is a person. The same way in the 80s, there was a big move for made in the USA. Like, does your shirt say made in the USA? There'll be a made by a human movement at some point.
Wow.
Neither one of those things will support the people that get replaced.
Right.
The people that get replaced will have to, the governments around the world will have to deal with that policy-wise. And so it's really important. That's why I got involved in education, is because the people I'm around have been talking about ChatGPT for 7 or 8 years. Like, this is not new.
Not yet.
It just finally got deployed, and then people are really figuring out how to do it. But it's happening so quick now because you have robots teaching robots. And so, I mean, right now, in 10 seconds, we could have AI draw a picture of you and me, you and me running onto the Atlanta Falcons field, and it would make that.
Yeah, right.
And so what's going to happen to artists and creativity? Like, all of this is going to go away to some degree, and only jobs with nuance will remain. Like that, there's not a 1 + 1 always equals 2. The advantage human beings have in this scenario is that we can look at stuff and say, yeah, 1 + 1 equals 2. That's true. But there's also scenarios where you might want to have 1 + 1 equals 3 to prove that that 1 + 1 equals 2. And like, there's this weird variables like that we as human beings will be able to survive. But taking an order at McDonald's isn't one of those. That will not be a thing. That job will go away. There's none of the smart people are debating that. That job's gone. at the Pro Bowl this year, getting Las Vegas. I wouldn't get in one, but my buddy Clint got in a self-driving Uber.
Nope.
I'm never doing that, right?
Nope.
You're out on it too?
Nope.
That's not something that's gonna happen. It's current right now.
Yeah.
There's self-driving trucks that go from San Francisco all the way down to Austin, Texas. They're on the roads with us right now.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna turn this into a weird econ podcast.
Oh, we talk about everything.
Okay, that specifically is trouble for America, because most small towns, like you drive up and down here, and anything between Atlanta and let's say where you guys are from in Kentucky, you're going to pass by hundreds of small towns supported by truck drivers, where that's the highest paying middle income job, where that's the highest paying non-college degree job, where that's the highest income non-skilled trades job. Those towns are going to be eviscerated.
Yeah.
The job where small town guys, a small town that might have 30 or 40 truck drivers in it that make $100,000 a year, they're going to go down to having 2 guys in that town that make $100,000 a year. And it's not one of these things that's coming. It's happening. It's already, and by the way, this is the hard part. It's needed, because those guys, we don't have young people that want to do over the road trucking. We have Amazon putting a ton of stress on the system. All of these things happen where the smart thing was like, all right, let's just automate it.
Yeah. No, so I don't know how big your third eye is, but you seem like you're pretty intelligent and know anything. So do you think that there was a plan? Like, do you think it was kind of like a plan where like, oh, we don't, not necessarily a plan, but like, we don't care about them. They're kind of peasants. So if they lose their jobs, or they go broke, or their towns fail, or, you know what I'm saying, whatever. Because I'm always one of those people, I think linear, very linear. Okay. And when you do that, you start to be like, well, okay, so this affects this, and then this affects this, and this affects this. And it always seems that it's always us, the people, that always get the short end of the stick. And our kids end up stupider, or our towns end up getting ruined, or we end up broker, or more people end up on drugs, violence in the communities. And it's just kind of like, at a certain point, it's like, man, like, I don't know what you guys, the people who run America, I don't know what you guys sit up there and think about, but it's almost like you guys sit up there and think about ways to make it less for us.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
It can feel like that. One thing to remember is the people that have power are usually not any of the innovators.
Right.
What their role in the ecosystem is when an idea pops to fund it. And there's no spot on the spreadsheet that cares about what's a small town around here. We're in Marietta, Georgia. What's something smaller than here? Like Smyrna? New Smyrna? Yeah, there's no spot on the spreadsheet where New Smyrna matters.
Yeah, right.
It's just a bunch of numbers and things.
Right.
And so I don't think it's intentional. I think it's cause and effect. I think also we cause most of the problems.
I can agree with that.
We cause most of the problems that eliminate low-paying jobs.
Right.
You can't get my order right at McDonald's.
Right.
You can't give me a straw. I said no cheese. Right? It's because there's a bunch of things that go into that, but that forces somebody to think, oh, there's a way I can innovate. If I can make the machine always be 100% right, why wouldn't I do it? If nobody wants to do over-the-road trucking, I have to innovate.
Right.
I'm writing a book. Well, I wrote a book. It's just finishing up the process called The Price of Bullshit, What I've Learned from Billionaires. I've been in a room with, like, because of some of the access I have, with 8 or 9 of the American billionaires that have they're kind of like closet billionaires, meaning like shadowy billionaires. Like they're not the big names you've ever heard of before. Right. They're people that have had businesses that scaled in a crazy way. One of the things I learned from them, and the whole premise of this book, is that I started realizing a theme was that these people don't believe the same thing that I believe. And what they're telling their children, stuff that we think of as common like sense, is opposite. And I don't think it's cynical. I don't think there was some room like, hey, teach all these people this and go this way. But I think it's just like hacking anything. Right. Hacking is going the unconventional route to get the outcome. So here's the easy one that I talk about. We get told don't talk to strangers. Yep. Rich people don't teach their kids that. And I'm talking really rich people. I'm talking $700 and $800 million people are teaching their kids that strangers have all the answers you don't have. Yeah. Right? We get taught take it one day at a time. And they're teaching their people like, no, it takes 21 days to form a habit. Like never, one day is only one day. There's no win in one day. Right. You got to have a long-term view. We get told start at the end, we'll start with the end in mind. And they're like, no, that's dumb. Start at the start and just be great at the foundation is the most important part. Right. The end won't matter. Right. Like all of this conventional wisdom that we think of, the most successful, at least commercially or financially, people that I've been around, they literally believe the opposite of what we get told. And they teach their kids the opposite of it.
Yeah. we've talked about this on my podcast before, because I recorded like when Kanye was doing his whole Jewish people thing, and I had a guy on, and him and I were just talking about it, and I was just like, the thing that Kanye is missing that they explain is the Jewish community. They just teach themselves differently. The way that, like, in the black community, if someone makes it, we hate on them. You see a Nipsey gets killed by someone in his own neighborhood. All these things, like the Jewish or black people, like you talked about it in your panel yesterday. You make money and then you leave, and you don't need to do that. In the Jewish community, they don't do that. Yeah. Like, I know a guy who owns a car dealership, and everyone who works there is Jewish and his people, and they make money, and then they start another business, and then all of them work it. So then it just all grows and grows, and they teach each other all these things. So it's like, it's not like they control the world or whatever you guys are saying. It's just they have a different community.
Sure. They
believe in each other. They build each other up. They teach each other the smart things. They don't go out. They're not having kids before marriage. They're not out shooting each other. They're not doing all of these things. So it's like, of course, their kids are going to be up higher than ours because they're not teaching all these things. So I can agree with that.
There's a term in that community, and somebody will correct me on me saying it wrong, I'm sure, but it's called fargin, F-A-R-G-I-N, which is the duty to take care of each other.
Right, yeah.
And that culturally exists in other cultures too. When you look at by the way, so there's what's wild when you get out of here and, you get your passport tatted up a little bit and you've been some places. Like in Korea, the kids, like from every age, they just walk to school.
Yeah.
The parents don't leave. The teachers don't wait outside. Like, they're just totally autonomous.
Wow.
No kidnappings.
Wow.
They've built a culture that's the idea of like hurting a Korean or one of your people. Japan's the same way. The idea of hurting a Japanese person is ridiculous.
Right.
It just doesn't even make sense. And it goes so, which is interesting that COVID exposes over there a lot of masks anyways, long before COVID, because they're moving through the world thinking about their grandma. There is no like, look at me. It's all community. It's all fargin. It's all like duty to take care of the other people. And so culturally, we don't have a lot of that. Not only in America, but in most of our subcultures in America, we don't have a lot of that.
Yeah.
And inside of that, what happens is you get groups of people with different information. There's like, I know for sure, like I've been in the room with people when they've been with their kids, and they're like, the way they're interacting with them and teaching them is interesting. Coach, before I spoke yesterday at the Black Sports Symposium, the coach from South Carolina spoke.
Yeah.
And one of the things she talked about is like, loving your kids enough to not bail them out of failing.
Yes, sir. And
I see that a ton. There's the ultra wealthy people I've been around, they don't coddle their kids at all. It's the opposite way of we think. And I think most people in America, their impression of rich people is the family that has $200,000 and is driving an Escalade and has the Louis Vuitton bag. In my mind, the family that is rich in my mind is $1 billion, 700 million, 400 million. It's like the person writing the check to the person that makes 200,000. Right. The 200,000 level, you probably do have a lot of that snotty kid, blah, 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 look at me. It's rarer and rarer. And I know people it's a bad time to talk about this because there's like this war on capitalism in many places, and there's this war on success in many places. My personal experience has been that the families with real wealth, the culture that they've created and insulated their family and children in is duplicatable, productive, and ongoing. There's always shitheads, there's always exceptions to the rule, but on the whole, when we think of, oh, he's a rich kid, we're not talking about the people I'm talking about right now.
Right. Yeah.
The people I'm talking about right now, since their kid was 2 or 3 years old, they're like, figure out how to tie your shoes. Mm-hmm. Like, just chip away at it. Like, get your coat on. Like, it's just a whole different thing. Right. All the way up to, I was in a room with somebody and their children, and they were like, look at the way these door handles are and the way these doors are on there. How could you improve that? Or what is the problem with this? And I'm looking at it as like, I was probably 30 years old at the time. I'm like, I don't even know what the hell they're talking about. But it was a glass door, and like every couple like minutes you hear boing. Yeah. Somebody went to push and it was a pull. Right? And on both sides of the door had the same like long handle.
Yeah.
And what he was teaching his son is like, there's no little sign there that says pull or push.
Right.
Right? Ba-bong, 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 over and over and over. And that's so subtle. That's not a moneymaker or anything, but he's teaching his kid to look at what is causing the problem.
Right.
What is the problem? So I know that boy, this is 13 years ago, that boy is, if that's one smallest subtle example, They're moving through the world looking at what is causing the problem. And when you do that, that's where all the opportunity is to really build wealth, is solving problems that exist.
Yes, sir. So that's actually crazy. I love to hear that, because there is a big war on capitalism and rich people, and that's part of the reason why I started doing what I'm doing with my holding companies and things, is because I'm so big on helping small business, because that's how you help America.
100%.
Right, that's how you build communities.
Most people are employed by a small business.
Right, exactly. And I think we've kind of villainized the business owners in the last few years, and like, oh, they're the problem. And it's just, they need to pay you guys more and stuff. And it's just kind of like, but I think a lot of people are being fed like lies of what capitalism really is. Because when you make that level that you're talking about, those guys understand that it's not about them.
Sure. It's very rare that you can. One of the sayings that Mr. Gilbert, who I was affiliated earlier with, Ian Gilbert, he would say, give what the greedy man won't and get what the greedy man wants. And I just seen that be so true so many times. Like, I've seen people's success get stopped in a high level because they wouldn't give like the next thing up. They'd argue about a business, all this stuff. And the good-natured people, you got to be competent and all that stuff. But the people I'm talking about are ultra competent, really smart and really intentional, but also they're all playing the long game.
Right.
And the long game includes being
a good person
to the extent of, I remember one time there was a problem when they were trying to get an Apple store to downtown Detroit on Woodward. And there was a bus stop where Apple was going to be, the only spot Apple wanted. There was a bus stop. As I'm saying this, I'm like, hopefully this isn't proprietary, but I remember it ended up out in the public. They moved the bus stop. People freaked out. Like, no one cares about this. And it's like, no, Apple doesn't want 40 people waiting on the bus out in front of their store. There's a whole host of problems that come with that. And the good of having Apple in that neighborhood outweighs people having to walk another 75 steps to catch the bus. But for some people, that sounds barbaric and tragic and people uninclusive. And for some other people, they're like, nah, I get it. That makes sense. Like, if I owned Apple too, like, I wouldn't want a bus stop out in front.
Right.
And so there's a lot of those things that compete for time and space in our minds that cause some of these friction points. But even, what we're tasked with in our community is teaching our kids to rise above all of that.
Right.
Why is the conversation not like, oh, thank goodness Apple's coming to Detroit?
Yeah.
That somebody made that happen.
Right.
Why is it?
Create jobs.
The bus is the least of the problems.
Right.
In fact, maybe having Apple there allows people to have enough foot traffic that whatever job they're doing to take the bus to becomes more valuable, and now I can afford a car. No one's thinking about the cause and effect on how all of these things, there's a saying that rising tides raise all boats. We don't believe that. We say that, but we don't believe that. And so when we see the tide start rising and someone's for half, we forget that it might eventually help us as well.
Right. Wow, that's deep.
Yeah. And it's just hard it's all about always playing the long game.
Right. And perspective.
Yeah.
Having the perspective to be able to understand, like, not panic when you start seeing the tide rise.
Yeah, or go against you. If there's something to stay in the course, when you're right, there's really something to not explaining it and like really staying the course on stuff and being kind to people, but also just understanding one of my favorite, like, ultra successful people quotes that I realized, and I just kind of realized as I'm talking, I probably use too many people's quotes, but I live my life through culture, and like isms and quotes is part of that. But
I think more people should do that. I think more people should do that. I've always been into like motivational speakers and like all that kind of stuff. And like as I've gotten older, I would always watch like Eric Thomas videos, and then you sit there and he got 4 million views. I would always look at it, well, there's 4 million other 15-year-olds watching this, so I need to get with it because I got to be better than them. And now that I'm older, I'm starting to realize, no, I was one of the few 15-year-olds that were watching it. It was always older people.
Yeah.
So it's just, I think more people need to start doing that. And I think that's why a lot of people are struggling, because they're listening to Kim Kardashian instead of people who can actually give them some value. So,
for sure.
So no, you're cool on that. But
I forgot what I was going to say on that, but you're right. No, that's all good. We were talking about, so the quote was, make a habit of ignoring the people with the least information. Our default setting is to give attention to the people with the least information, right? Jacob's a bad person. hey, Jacob, do you know them? No. All right, then don't respond.
Right.
Why would you give the person with the least information on you being a good or bad person?
Right.
Don't give them any, and it's wild what it frees up for your peace of mind too. Now, if somebody has a lot of information and they're still able to articulate why you might be wrong, you got to have the humility to hear them out.
Right.
Right? Because now we're talking about a different situation. We're conditioned, however, to give attention to people with the least information. It happens all the time on the Board of Education. People are like, Kurt, if you guys cared about people, you'd be doing this. I'm like, okay, gotcha. How many of these board meetings have you ever been to?
Right.
None? How many of the MASB courses have you taken? None? Were you ever a teacher? No? All right.
In your opinion,
Keep it pimping, baby.
Right.
Like, you don't have enough information.
I think
debate.
Americans have this savior complex where they're waiting for it. And I think that's part of the reason why we've gotten to the point where we are now as a country is good men are not doing what we're supposed to do.
Sure.
We're just kind of passive and we're like, nope, someone else is going to go to the board meeting. Someone else is going to be a teacher. Someone else is going to run for governor and do all these things. I don't want to do it. I care about this and this. And it's kind of like, who said it? Someone said a quote. It was the president. He said, when good men choose to sit by, bad men will take over.
100%.
And that's how it goes.
That's so smart. Yeah, idealism requires distance from the solution. Like, to the most idyllic people also don't have to participate in getting the work done, usually.
Right.
Like, the person that's like, we should home every homeless person. I agree. Yeah, we should. Do you want to come down and volunteer to help? You want 2 of them to live in your house?
Yeah.
No. We push back on that. Yeah. Idealism requires some space from having to do the work.
Right.
What I talked about yesterday and what I'm trying to be a beacon for is, okay, the work that resonates with you, go do that. Right. And that's enough. I don't try to solve every problem. People bring stuff to me all the time. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I'm like, that's not one of the core things I'm trying to do. Yeah. As I told you, like, I really look at my life experience as one that I've got one lap around the track. And I'm somewhere between halfway around the track at 43, that I'll be here another 43 years, or when you go to drop me off at the airport, I get clipped on the way out. Right, I'm somewhere between 100% and 43% through. And so, as time is a currency in my mind, like, I don't have the care nor the interest or inclination to spend time on everything. Right. I got like 3 or 4 things that I care deeply about, and I just try to spend my time on that. And when people in that space challenge me, I'm open to being wrong. I'm completely open to it. But at the same time, if they don't have more information than me, it's very unlikely that they can move me off my pivot.
Because you know who you are.
100%. I'm all the way anchored in on, like, the things that I believe.
Right. Yes, sir.
Because they didn't come out of nowhere.
Right.
Like, one day I'm in the projects. I lived in Cranbrook Housing Manor. And one fast forward, not that long, I live on a golf course. That's not a flex, but that really happened. I didn't read this in a book somewhere. Right. I didn't watch Wallow and Gilly. Like, this really happened to me. Right. So it's the only experience I know, which tells me 2 things, which is I've done some of the things right. Right. Yeah. Because the system is not set up for a kid like me who made all these mistakes, who goes to Michigan State and quits, who goes to Ferris State, gets kicked out for a fight, who wrestles at Muskegon Community College and quits. Like, the system is not set up for that person to win at the level that I've been able to win. And I'm still super unsatisfied with what I'm hoping to do in my life. But I do acknowledge, like, Cranbrook is a long way back there, like a long way back there.
Yes, sir. So that kind of leads me to my next question. Like I said at the beginning, what is one of the hardest things you've been through in your life? What did you do to pull yourself out of that? What are some of the lessons you learned? Just that whole process.
For me, there's really 2 things. And so one of them is my sister died of cancer. And so one day I'm riding a bike. I went and bought a bike. I'm literally, like, living in Florida. I was at our saltwater pool, and I was like, I need to go get a bicycle today. I had like 6 Coronas. I got an Uber over to the bike shop, which is like 25 minutes to 43.
Okay.
Oh, when this happened? 36.
Okay.
And I'm riding back, and my phone is like making the weirdest noise I've ever heard. I'm like, what is going on? I get stopped at a drawbridge in Fort Lauderdale. I take my phone out. It's the first time somebody's ever hit me on Facebook Messenger. And so I knew my sister was sick for a long time, but it's somebody in the hospital saying, hey, they're about to go in and tell her she's terminally ill. Like, that they're going to stop the treatments and she's not going to make it. And I'm like, no, I'm all she had. I have more, but I'm the only person she had in her life. Like she was estranged from my mom. She had children, but I'm like, put me on the phone with the doctor right now. This is all happening on Facebook Messenger when I didn't even know was a thing.
Right.
Like, I'm like, hey, you can't do that. I'm coming right now. She's like, okay, how long? And I'm like, I have no idea. I live in Florida. But don't go in that room. She needs me there when you tell her this. And so, long story short, it's the first time in my life I bought an airplane ticket at the airport. I went immediately to Fort Lauderdale Airport. This was all around 2:30 in the afternoon. I was on a flight at 5. I was in her hospital room about 8 o'clock.
Wow.
And, I wanted her to have one last good day. So I was like, let's do this tomorrow. And when I know that this lady who did it with so much grace, I know she's going to come in and tell my sister she's going to die. And like it's 8 o'clock. She's coming at 10. It's 8:30. Yeah. And so that probably 2.5 hours is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Afterwards, it's weird what happens because there's a scramble then to fit a lifetime into. They're like, hey, you have about 6 weeks left. And you're trying to do wills and you're trying to figure out, like, she had 4 kids. And so me and my wife, like, we moved to Michigan, like, sight unseen. My wife was a super gangster, like, found a house. We went and bought this house up there that we never even been to. Trying to get shot records. I had to get all our kids' social security numbers. And literally every day she's declining worse and worse and worse. Not being able to remember stuff or recall stuff. I'm like, who's their doctor? Who's their dentist? All this stuff. And every night I would make these lists, like, what is the stuff that I don't know? And it was just a wild experience because we're dying right now. All of us are. But there's something that happens where we feel like we have more time to watch somebody know they're dying. Now, my sister was super religious. And so the grace in which she got up out of here, like she was excited to go because she really believed she was going to heaven. It was an incredible experience. The experience, as traumatic as it was. But then it really hits you like after the funeral, then there's like time to live with this forever. And I was fine for a while, but then her first birthday came and I'm like, I literally went out the car and I was like weeping. Yeah. St. Patrick's Day too, which used to be my favorite holiday. And so the experience of all of that was the worst thing that's happening in terms of like something that I just like, I really went through all the grief stages. I'm a kinesiology guy, so like I really have spent a lot of time with how our brains and minds and bodies work. Yeah. And I really went through like the bargaining, like, okay, what if they're wrong? It's not 6 weeks and it's 21 weeks and we can get a Winnebago and go to Cedar Point and like all that stuff's happening. And then it's like, damn it, why would I get to have this good life? And she was way better than me, but she had a hard life. She made some tough choices. And so, she worked at Subway. My mom worked at Denny's, she worked at Subway. I worked at a financial institution. I'm making $20,000 a month. They're making $30,000 a year. Like that really all was in play. Like, God damn, like what did I ever do to get this? She was a better person than me. She was smarter than me, all this stuff. And so then the survivor guilt, which I've always felt from being from the neighborhood anyways, that was really hard to deal with. And then a third thing happens, which is, it just happened on the drive over here with you. I'm like, damn, my elbow hurts really bad. And you start thinking like, oh, is that trauma of that stays with you? And it's like, whew. Growing up, I had in 7th grade, one of my best friends died in front of us. He got shot in the head. And our neighbor came down and told him he was going to be all right. And I remember being furious. It ended up being the most inspired thing I ever seen because he was old. We were in 7th grade. This guy's like 40. He's like, no, it barely got you. And my friend Tyrone's talking to him. Yeah. And he's like, no, it's not that bad. And me and the 2 other kids are like, oh, this is bad. Like when I close my eyes right now, I can see it. Like if I'm not careful, when I lay down at night, I see it. It's like that burned into me. And I was so mad for years. That was the worst thing that happened because at the time I'm like, dang, why didn't you tell him? And why didn't you tell him? And then to have that other experience where someone knows they're gonna pass, it was like, oh, okay. That was a traumatic situation, but there's so much grace and dignity in the way that this guy let that last couple minutes for Tyrone go versus I had to watch for 6 weeks my sister deal with the imminentness of it.
That's real different. That's very like 2 different perspectives. Yeah, that's crazy. So what would you say you learned the most through all those things, like through those things?
Just to be like, your producer had asked me on the way over here, like, what do I like better? Like, I don't have any of those answers anymore. I like being alive right now today. I'm so grateful for oxygen, for sunshine, for, we live a comfortable life, but I just understand how fleeting that can be.
Yeah.
And there's something different when the doctor can't help you anymore and you experience that as the other person, because we don't. There's always hope.
Right.
You know, and then if you ever need a miracle, that's a wild thing to deal with. And what it teaches you is to just be grateful for so much. You know, I was just talking to one of our neighbors about this. She's been very upset by all these school shootings, and that terrifies me as a parent too.
Right.
But the only thing I can actually do is be so grateful for all the time I have now.
Right.
And I have to acknowledge that bad things, I'm eligible for bad things to happen to me too, regardless of how good I am, how much I try to contribute. I'm eligible for bad stuff to happen. And so I have to be overwhelmingly content and happy. Doesn't mean I have to be satisfied and say I don't want more things in life, I don't want more experiences, I don't want more joy. But like when things don't go my way, man, it's really hard for me to, if anyone ever heard me say like, hey, it's tough today, they should put me on like a watch list or something, because my brain doesn't even work that way. Right. And I was always starting to get bulletproof to that. But like, you know, with a sibling, it's really tough when they pass away, because basically we got some books there, somebody took a book and ripped that chapter, all those chapters out. And so I still will be driving and have something happen. I'm like, let me call Kendra real quick. And then boom, it's like day one again. And you get in this, like, they talk about grief being waves. Man, I've had some that are ripples and I'm like, damn, why can't I learn this? And then I've had some literally where it's like, I got good news and I was like, damn, I can't wait to tell her this. And it's like, boom, typhoon, like pull the car off the highway, like, wow, you know. But our brains are so good, our body, we're so wired to just have to keep going, that like you can just forget that your first best friend on earth passed away. And it's wild. And so the only thing you can take positive from that is gratitude. But also what I really started to realize with her children is they got to know, and there is some grace and value in that, because while we're talking, somebody's going to get a phone call that somebody passed away unexpectedly. Right. And they didn't get to do all their stuff. So she got all of the kind of goodbye stuff. And there's some upside to that. But I'll tell you, when people overuse the word trauma, it's traumatic. Yeah. It's traumatic.
Yes, sir. That's crazy. Yeah, that's a lot to take in. Because I've never had a sibling lose, but my sister, like 2 weeks after my son was born, my sister's husband died from cancer. And that was crazy enough. I only knew him for 3 years. So I only could imagine. Yeah, that's crazy.
It can change relationships. So the wildest thing about, I could say that probably on 100 circumstances with that. But I was with my sister when she signed her do not resuscitate. There's a form like, hey, this is it. Whenever I'm gonna die, don't try to fix me. And I watched her sign that, and I was like, I remember thinking like, I literally like in 2014 was like one of the best bench pressers on the planet. Like I was chasing the world record of 608 steroid free. I'm a meathead through and through. I'm old and fat now, but I was really deep in that game, and I remember thinking that is literally the strongest thing I ever seen somebody do was pick up that pen. Yeah. They slid it to her. She looked at it, processed it, and it's quiet in there. It's like the sound is sucked out. And I watched her hand pick up that pen and sign that thing. And I'm like, oh my God. Because for me, I'm going out like a baby, like a toddler. I don't know that I can do any of that. And I guess I hope to never know, because you can only know in that scenario. But I just remember thinking, wow, that's the strongest thing I've ever seen. You know, I've seen people do 814-pound raw squats. I've seen my nemesis on life, Jeremy Hoenstra, break the world record at 608 steroid free for 242-pound people.
That's crazy.
But that's different. That's Michael Jordan from the 3-point line dunking. You know, how could she have picked up that pen?
Yeah, for sure. I think so. Him and I were having a conversation a few weeks ago, because I'm big on psychology and all those kind of things, and I kind of said when someone dies, you're gonna go through the grief stages. You're gonna go through depression. This is normal, and I've dealt with a few deaths in my life, and I've learned, because you naturally digress, like to your childhood, inner child, right? So like I had a friend who, him and I weren't friends. His mother died, and him and I weren't friends when that happened. But we're friends now. He was on my podcast, and he was telling me his stories, and I was listening to him and talking. I kind of started seeing everything that was happening. So his mom died, so he grew his dreads back. He was digressing to his inner child. He started behaving more like in college. He started going to bars more and doing all these things when you digress to your inner child. And that's normal, and you kind of should do that. But the craziest thing is, and it's the hardest thing to do, the easiest way to deal with death to me is you have to contextualize your life without them for the rest of your life.
Yeah, there's a permanence to it that's unusual.
Yeah, and that's the best way to deal with it. Because if you're sitting there and but I also think like you should sit there and like grieve and like think about the past and all those things. But like it's once you can contextualize, all right, they're gone. Then I'm not going to be able to do this with them anymore. I'm not doing this with them anymore. I'm not doing this with them anymore. It just gets so much easier to like move throughout the day. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if that makes sense.
It doesn't for me, but I understand we're all having our individual journeys here.
Yeah.
So for me, it's wild. Like, I'll hear a song and be like, damn, that would have been her jam.
Right.
Like, for me, it's perpetual. You know, I actually have to intentionally push it away. You know, I was in something the other day and I'm talking and I'm like, the way this girl was sitting in the back of this audience, I'm like, damn, that looks like Kendra. While I'm talking, I'm doing our brains can do both. I'm doing a keynote speech. And I'm like, damn, that can't be Kendra. Kendra's dead forever.
Right.
She's always dead. She's never going to pop up at one of these things. And that was heavy. And I still got to go make all these people laugh and learn.
Right.
You know, it's wild. So our brains are just interesting in the way that sometimes they can drive it way down and sometimes they can't.
That might be one of my issues. I've been told is that I just bury my emotions and thoughts.
Yeah.
But it's just, to me, it's just kind of like, I don't know. I've always been one of those people, like, life goes on. I'm not the first person to go through this, and I'm not going to be the last.
There's value in that for sure.
You know, and if I necessarily like take a week off or 2 weeks off, like that's fine. But it's like that third Monday, it's kind of like, all right, man, we got things to do. Life goes on. So it's just kind of like, to me, I'm just kind of like, yeah, all right, it sucks. I'm going to cry it out for a day or two, and I'm just going to spend the next day or two, contextualize it all in my head, and then I'm going to move on.
Yeah, it's interesting because it changes the relationship. So we move up to Michigan. We have my sister Kendra's kids. They live with us for a while, and then their dad sues us in court and ends up getting 2 of them back. 5 months later, one of the boys, Anthony, my nephew, gets shot and killed.
Wow.
I was so predictable because their dad just the lifestyle that he lived and all that stuff. To this day, the way my brain processes that is like literally if somebody's like, oh man, if Anthony was here, I will in my head say, well, he's not because he's dumb and he got killed.
Yeah.
It's like so vehement in anger, and I love that little boy. That was my dude. But he made the way he died was so, he died like in a situation where they're playing with a gun, and they idiots didn't realize when they took a clip out of this gun that there's still one in the chamber, and he shot it at his friend's stomach, which is so after school special for me because I'm a big firearms guy. And the way that for him to die like that,
yeah, that's crazy.
It was so disrespectful to me that they're still like, I'm not even in the grief cycle yet. I've just been mad at him for 3 years and he's been dead.
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy. That's a terrible way to die.
That's the worst. And worse than that is, unfortunately, he got shot in the stomach. People don't know how that works with the body, and it feels survivable, but like, you know, they just waited too long because they're scared they're going to be in trouble. And he had no shot, basically, you know. Like, if they would have got him out of there right away, there's a shot, but they're trying to cover it up for like 10, 15 minutes before they call the ambulance. You know, because kids don't know. And so it's just wild, like...
How old was he?
He was 14.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, that's terrible.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
And so, hard for me, but imagine this. His brother Aaron, my nephew, his mom dies, his grandma dies, his brother dies, and then his dad died in 22 months. And so for me... That's sad, but the only thing I can do is turn that into gratitude because that's perspective for me. My parents are still alive.
Right.
You know, my sister is gone, which could, you know, but, you know, like I got brought down here to Atlanta to give and build, and there's still good stuff happening in my life.
Yes, sir. So, because you've brought it up a few times and just kind of touched on it, so I got kind of curious. What would you say has helped you, like the big key things to get out of the environment you grew up in?
I think probably one of the most influential things that happened to me is when I got done at Muskegon Community College, this older white guy, Clark Bentley, had like a really stern conversation with me and introduced me to a circle of people that were giving me real feedback for the first time. And one of the things that came up is like, do you ever think about that there's no like fundraising for 21-year-old Black kids who don't make it? They're like, all these other times, it's like, oh, Kurt's from a hard family. He's dad, no dad. Mom had drugs, blah, blah, blah. All this way, we're helping you. These people coming in your life and doing stuff for you. We're not doing no bake sales when you're 21. We're not selling no ribbons. Like, you just didn't make it. And that was a wild thing. That ricocheted in my head. I still sometimes, I'll just be driving and smirk like, oh my God, like he shot me in the stomach. Like he blasted me with that one. Like if you don't, like there's help when you're a kid. People are sympathetic. People want to, but if you're 22 and still making these mistakes, when there's no fundraiser, there's no like support system for adult men who can't figure it out. And I was a hard hat. I enjoyed fighting, a really good wrestler. Like I loved confrontation, street kid. People say they're not afraid of stuff. Sometimes I played fullback. I literally never was afraid of stuff.
Yeah.
That moment was like very fearful to me.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God. Like it did something in my heart that created urgency. Like, oh, I better figure this thing out. You know, because that was right after, that was maybe a day or two after 9/11. And I turned 21 like 5 days after that, or 2 weeks after that, that conversation.
Yeah.
And so now I'm like, damn, I'm 21. If I go to jail, like they had got me out of jail. When I got to Ferris, I got in a really bad fight. Unfortunately, it wasn't even my fault. One of the kids fell, and when he fell, he hit his head on the corner of a table. He was jacked up for a little bit. And so like we were in big trouble. And my bail was like $3,000, which might as well have been $3 million. Like we don't have money.
Right.
And they came and worked it out, and some of my friends, basically people's parents, everybody got me out. And I realized, like, dang, if this happened now, no one's coming to get me. They don't care. Like, you're just that person. Yeah. I struggle with that now still. Like, am I this person? One of the things that's hard for me is my daughter that's 27 watches me be like a world-class dad to her 5-year-old sisters. Yeah. And we've reconciled that the best way I can, which is like, I honor every feeling you have. You're right on all those feelings. There's just nothing I can do about it now. Yeah. And I went heavy into let's make a bunch of money and have success. And, you know, she had a great life, in my opinion, went to college. She never worked she never had a job. And I've been working since I was 14, you know, like all of these things, but I couldn't give her time and guidance and some of that stuff. And so sometimes I think like, which dad am I? You know, I think about like, I stole from people. We shot at people. We kicked in doors. Like, am I that person, or am I the person that meets Jacob and says, yes, let's drive 30 minutes outside this conference and do this podcast because it might be able to help you or help others? Like, like which person am I? I don't know, you know, because I feel like I've evolved, but I'm so open to the fact that, as I told you, my philosophy on the way over here is like, I don't know what'll happen if you put me on an island. Like, you know, you do something in front of my wife or in front of my kid, I don't know that I'm not going to drag you down the street and I'll go do 50 years. Right. Like, I don't know. I know it's inside of me.
I think having that internal dialogue and understanding is important, though. Yeah. So, like, I'm big on, so, like, Americans, they do this thing where, oh, I'm not this, I'm not that. And it's like, but if you're not intelligent to realize that a lot of you would have been the Nazi people in Germany, just because you would have fallen for that, then you're not real with yourself. Yeah. You're not honest with yourself.
The context matters. Yeah. There's nuance. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to be able to have.
You're not in all these experiences you have. You can say you wouldn't.
Right.
But there's a whole set of experiences that could have put any of us on the path.
Right. Exactly. And you have to be able to, I guess, know that there's a demon inside of you, but real men don't learn how to control it. Yeah. So would you say like that's what happened to you? You grew up, became a man, and was like, I'm learning how to control my desires, my disciplines, my mental toughness, all those things? Yeah.
I learned it, but I had a really interesting experience happen when I was 27. Somebody called my friend the N-word and he killed him. Wow. He's never going to have sex with a woman again. Nope. He's not going to have a family. Nope. He's doing life in prison because somebody said a word to him. Wow. Yeah. And that was another one of those perspective bombs. Like, yeah, I'm not, you know, you almost need, God bless him, because I don't want this to happen to and I'm probably overusing the word friend. We grew up together. But it gave me so much perspective because that could have easily have happened to me. Right. And I've been in that situation since then. I'm like, yeah, right. Like, I'm going to not sleep in the same house with my children because you said a word to me.
Right.
Because I do know that I physically can overwhelm people in a terrible way.
Yeah.
And so I think part of it is I don't know how much I've learned to control it, but I'm so aware of the consequences now. And in fact, Nipsey, and you don't even know this, we haven't talked about it. I was supposed to work with Nipsey on a project they had called Vector 360. I work with the Los Angeles Rams Community Foundation. I was supposed to go meet Nipsey probably 5 or 6 days after he got killed.
Wow.
We were on the books. His business manager, Adam Anderbron, all these people, we were going to go do this opening of Vector 360, which is basically what we do here in Atlanta at the Black Sports Symposium, but it was for kids in LA. It was going to be a fintech hub. Chase, all these people were pouring in. You know what Nipsey was on. Basically, they were just going to have a clubhouse where you could come, learn how to code, and somebody could vet your code and do all this stuff. Right. And so we were getting ready to work on that. I say all that to say this. When he died, and I know a lot of his core people that are not the famous people, but also not the guys he grew up with, just like people that met him and, you know, he moved through the rooms that attract a certain group of people.
Right.
And he was a star, man. I learned about him from Maverick Carter, by the way.
Oh, wow.
LeBron's guy.
Yeah.
And I remember looking up his music. I'm like, man, I'm not trying to hear some dude from LA. And I was blown away how insightful it was. And it was, like we talked about, there's very few people rapping for a dude like me that lives on a golf course. And like used to be a street kid, but isn't anymore. But what happened is, as that happened to him, somebody was like, dang, he almost made it. And that was like a religious experience for me, because people will say he's successful, but there's also the case that can be made that Nipsey didn't make it. He got killed in the place where he was hustling.
Yeah.
He lost his life. Mm-hmm. He didn't make it. He made some money along the way and blah, 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 but he still died of gun violence on Crenshaw and Slauson.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And that was so wild for somebody to say out loud, he almost made it. Because our inclination is like, yo, Nipsey made it. He didn't. And so that is another one of these perspective things for me. Like, for me to end up dying in jail or to have something wild happen, like, you know, it's just one of those things I think about. Like, I want to be a guy when I die, they're like, oh, Kurt made it. He was 84 years old. His grandkids' college was paid for. Like, you know, and that gives me that perspective. Like, damn, Nipsey didn't make it.
Wow. Yeah.
He died right where he was struggling.
Yeah.
You know, and he still lost his life the same way his 6th grade teacher would have thought he would have. And that was a lot to take in, but it's another one of those things. And I'm sure this is happening to more and more people, but what I encourage people to do is have your head on a swivel for the game that's coming to you. You don't need a podcast. You don't need to listen to me and Jacob talk about this. There's life situation. You might flip on the radio and hear something and be like, okay, let me put that in my back pocket so that when I'm in a stress situation, a core experience, I talk a lot about core experiences. Like, people assume they're positive, but like core experiences is what happened to my buddy. Somebody said a word to him and he killed that person.
Right.
That core experience is going to dictate everything that happens for him the rest of his life.
Right.
And he didn't have the information to be ready for the core experience. I carry a firearm every day on CPL. One of the things they teach you during the process, like when you're big in that world, is like, have a plan for what you're going to do. Like, so like, I know some people that are advocates, like they see you getting into it with somebody and they're going to intervene. Mm. I'm not. Mm-hmm. Right? I don't know what's going on. I don't want to get sued. Like, I'm very conscious of like, that's not a duty I'm carrying with me. Right. School shooter situation. If I'm in a mall and somebody comes in there shooting, I'm going to kill that person. Right. I'm going to try to kill that person. They're going to have to kill me. Yeah. I've made up my mind before that core experience happens what that outcome's going to be. I'm not going to survive it because I ran and my family or other people's family gets killed. Mm-hmm. I've made up what I'm going to do. Somebody calls me the N-word at the airport today. I've already made up my mind what's going to happen to that. I'm not punching them. I'm not interacting. Right. I've already made up my mind. Somebody slides into my DMs. Somebody, like, I was at a hotel last night. I could tell like this guy was like married, but some girl's flirting with him. He hasn't made up his mind what he's going to do in that scenario. I'm going to be married to my wife forever. I've made up my mind that I know. I keep doing this. I build these boxes. This is the way I think about stuff. In all these left and right situations, I've already decided. Mm-hmm. Right? Somebody's kidnapping a kid. I've decided I'm going to kill that person. Right. somebody's arguing at the store and somebody pulls out a gun on another person and I'm 5 pumps away, I'm driving away. I've decided.
Yeah.
Because I have a family and I'm not a policeman. Like, I've decided in all these critical situations, people sometimes will hit me up and ask me for money. I already decided I have a play. I tell everybody, I will give you $400. You can never ask me for money again and don't pay it back. Like, I've already decided that I'm not going to be a part of somebody's bank. Like, they're going to come to me. This is for my core people, by the way. Don't hit me up. I'm trying to get money. But a lot of that is like things I've watched. Like, there's one really successful guy that we know, and he wears the same suit every day. And he's like, I make too many other decisions. I don't want to decide on what I'm going to wear.
Yeah.
He's like made these things up already. And I'm like, that's interesting to me. And how many more can we build? So I like to party and have a good time. People hate when I say this, I'll never get a DUI. I'll never get one.
Why? Because I'm not going. Yeah.
I'm not driving after I have one drink.
Yeah.
I'm getting in the Uber.
Yeah.
I'll never get one. People are like, oh, knock on wood. I don't have to knock on wood.
I know.
I've made up my mind that there are not scenarios where I'm going to be drunk and driving a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And I've made up my mind that I'm not going to be in a scenario where some woman can say something happened because I'm not alone with strange women. I've made up my mind that I'm not going to cheat on my wife. It's decided. I've also made up my mind that I'm not going to rest on, we have a very comfortable life. I have a high income. I'm not sitting on this either. I've made up my mind that I'm going to go do other stuff too. And I just think a lot of success is figuring out those things. Like, what are the things you're not tinkering with? Like, what are the things that are religion to you? Like, what are the things you've made up your mind on? I've made up my mind I'm going to be the best dad. Of everybody my girls go to school with, they're going to be able to say my dad's the best.
Right.
I made up my mind.
Yeah. And once you make up your mind, you're doing it.
Oh, forget about it. Because then it's like, last week, I had to get up out of Fort Lauderdale. I'm having the time of my life. We had a pack event. We had guys in there, like really big name players, Devin McCourty, Jonathan Jones, and Ndamukong Suh. I, like anybody else, I'm a fan of these people. I would like to stay longer, but we got soccer.
Yeah.
I'm going.
Mm.
I'm taking this early flight and I'm out of here the next day.
Like your daughter had soccer.
Yeah, my daughter. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't play a lot of soccer. My twins they had stuff going on,
right.
And I've made up my mind. I'm never going to be in a situation where it's like, I had a wild experience, by the way. I don't get to talk a lot of football with pro guys.
Yeah.
It just doesn't come up in what we do. But Devin McCourty and Giovanni Bernard are talking about how when Gio was a rookie with the Bengals, he was giving dudes fits, catching the ball out of the backfield. And I'm listening to them explain a high level of football I never heard in my life, like the way they're going back and forth at it. And I'm like, damn, it's 9:55. I told my wife I'll call her at 10.
Phone her, yeah.
You know what I mean? I need those things. I'm not a disciplined person like that. I won't make a good decision in the moment, is what I found out about myself. Mm. And that's true to go back to your original question on what are the things that made me successful. One of the things I learned is I won't make a good decision in the moment.
So
I have to put a lot of thought into stuff.
Right. That's deep. That comes from knowing yourself. So do you like meditate or anything like that?
No. I believe in it though. So being a biology guy, kinesiology guy, we know that meditation or even prayer creates white matter in the brain.
Yeah.
It's scientific. It's not up for debate.
Yeah.
What I do that I think is interesting is my wife will drive. She always drives. I never drive the car. And she'll see me doing something. And she's like, what are you building? Because as a keynote speaker and we do stuff like I'm thinking of stuff. Sometimes something will pop into my head and I'll be like, okay. And I spend a lot of time on that. If somebody says somebody asks you what's Chat GPT going to do? Like we talked about, I've already had 77 conversations with myself about how is Chat GPT moving? Well, if this is true, well, does that make this true? And all of that stuff. So I spend a lot of time thinking about thinking. I also spend a lot of time, I have one of the best practices I wish everybody would do is when I have an interesting thought, I text it to myself. Mm. I have a text chain that goes back to 2011. So every time I get done with my phone, I'll copy the thing, put it in an email on my Outlook, send it to myself. I'll scroll through that sometimes and it's so interesting to be like, wow, this is what I was thinking about on May 15th in 2011. Yeah. This is what I think. And some of the things are right and some of them are wrong and some of them have really came up and some of them have, I had wrote down one time that I wanted to change the way education is. I wanted to affect the way education works in America. And I wrote that down in 2012.
Wow, now you're doing it.
And I hope to do it. But like when I ran for the Board of Education in the November election, I had completely forgot about all that.
Yeah.
I was looking for something one day and scrolling this thing is long because I have a lot of thought. We all have a lot of thoughts.
Yeah.
I was scrolling my Hotmail and I was like, holy shit. I found the one, like, dang, in 2013, 2012, 10 years before it happens, I had just made this statement. And the reason I made that statement is I was watching a podcast. I was watching a TED Talk of Seth Godin. He talked about the crisis of nobody knows what school is for. And because no one knows what school is for, we turn school into a free lunch program. We turn it into a social work program. We turn it into a conveyor belt program. We turn it in now to a vaccine program. We turn school into all this whole thing because we don't know what school is for.
What would you say it's for?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Yeah, what I know it's not for is where we're failing is school is right now a pipeline, a conveyor belt that gets off at college. School is set up to send people to college and it's not set up to do anything else.
Right.
If you know anything about the history, are you educated on school?
Like in a sense of what?
Like how it started or where it came from?
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is good. And anybody, this is another key moment for people. Anyone listening to this, just research it. Even me, I know this is all right. But most people are getting some of the facts wrong, even if it's pure.
Right.
But this is what's cool. This is 100% right. Education started in Michigan, high school. It was started by the Ku Klux Klan in Jackson, Michigan.
Wow.
They were running into this problem where all these 14-year-old kids were taking the farming and agriculture jobs from grown-up men. Yeah. They got together, the Ku Klux Klan put together a policy and literally started education as a way to keep kids away from the workforce. Now, as that's happening, the Industrial Revolution starts to pop off. Yeah. Now there's a mechanism that's been created by this Klan policy of keeping kids so that they're not taking jobs from adults. And people realize like, oh, there's an indoctrination program that we can do here. This is not a conspiracy theory. I know when someone uses the word indoctrination, people get freaked out about it. Mm-hmm. But literally what it started off as is put people in rows, teach them memory and recall, create a system of competitiveness, like you're number 1 and you're number 38. And because you're number 38, your goal is to become number 37. And because you're number 1, your goal is to stay number 1. And teach all of these things that will be useful in a factory setting. If you think about how school looked when you and I went through school, especially in like kindergarten, it literally was sat up with people in rows. And for years, when people tried to change that, they were like, oh, why aren't the kids? Like over time, no one even knew why people were in rows. No one even knew why every morning the Pledge of Allegiance was on. The Cold War, right? Nobody even knew all of these mechanisms that are ubiquitous in education because no one knew what school was for. It just kept getting piled stuff on over and over and over. School nurses became an easier way to deal with community mental health than any other thing, right? Hearing and readings, hearing screenings, eye screenings, all of this stuff is not education. Right. It's all on this education pipeline that overwhelms it. It's the most under-resourced thing that we have in the country, but it's also the most ubiquitous thing that people will be a part of anymore. People your age won't work for a company for 40 years anymore. The longest thing they'll do is be in the K through 12 education system. And it's just wrought with stuff that isn't about education. I've been in my board position since the beginning of the year. We have never once, even one time, talked about education. We talk about buildings. We talk about like teacher firings. We talk about discipline issues. We never talked about reading. And we're one of the lowest performing schools in the country. We're in the bottom 25 in the country. Yeah. Why is that? Because education's so far down the list of running a school system. It's all about budget. We manage a $363 million a year budget. I'm on the finance committee for that. We got a grant for $500,000 to give all our kids. We have 100% free lunch in our district. Oh, wow. To give them fresh fruit. We can't even do it. We can't even give these kids fresh fruit. Yeah. We got $500,000 to give it to them. And it's so far down. There's so many other things jacked up. We're dealing with metal detectors, school shootings, the cafeteria food got poisoned. Like the grass isn't cut. And it's like, oh, I see. This thing got way too big to talk about 1 + 1 = 2 anymore. Yeah. We don't talk about education at all. Wow. And it's one of those things that it's very hard to fix because you've got to peel stuff off to make it work, in my opinion. But most of these people want to go do something else. Yeah. The board that I'm on, all of them become city council. Some of them will become the mayor. Some of them become state senator. So they can't no one can stand up and say, hey, you know what? Maybe we need to do less of the whatever X, Y, and Z is. It's politically toxic to them.
Right.
You know, maybe we, like right now, all these schools get measured by like suspensions. So what does anyone do if their pay or their performance gets measured by a metric? The first thing they do is game the system, right? So we don't have any suspensions anymore. We just put people in a room called in-school suspension.
Yeah.
And it doesn't count as a suspension. Bring up like, why don't we count in-school suspensions as suspensions? Well, the state of Michigan doesn't require us to. Yeah, but isn't the right thing to do if we're touting how suspensions is down? Isn't the right thing to do to be like, it's actually the same as it's always been? Yeah. We just changed the term of it. Yeah. The shit will drive people nuts. They're like, Kurt, you don't get it. Like, because there's a political component to like, you know, we have, right now, if you fight at one of our high schools, you don't get suspended. So what school do you think has the most fights?
Probably the blackest school there.
No, but I'm just talking about, it's the school that there's no consequence, right? That school has the most fights, and because they had suspended so many kids for fights and kind of, I won't say social justice, but like all of the people are like, oh, we're suspending all these kids. Now you don't get suspended. They can just send them back to class. Yeah. Right? Now you just got beat up in the hallway and you're in class with kids trying to learn about the history of World War II. Yeah. All you're doing is thinking about getting out of that room and doing what? Beating the fuck out of them. 100%. Yeah. There's value in kicking people out and moving them, but you can't say that out loud. So I don't know anyone up in Michigan necessarily going to hear this, but somebody would bring me in a room and be like, Kurt, this is another one of these things where, you know, it's not good for you. They don't believe that I'm really not trying to do something else. Because I have connections and stuff, I know there's a lot of people that think I want to be a state senator. Yeah. It doesn't pay nearly enough for me to do it. Like the board isn't a full-time job. It's like something you do on the side. State senator's a full-time job, but it only pays $85,000. Like,
well, I think that's where politics in our country has gotten messed up. No, yeah, she wouldn't want to downgrade. I think that's where politics has gotten messed up. It's not a job. It should be a service. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, it should be a service. You should be serving your people in the country. It should not be something that you should not be able to take political theory or political science as a course in college. You shouldn't be getting out of college doing these internships, having these little political parties and building all these fancy relationships. It's like, no, that's not what this system was made up to be. In order for you to get in that spot, the people should vote for you, period. Yeah. It should be not about who you know, the connections you have that are above you. Oh, you have ties to this governor or senator. None of that should matter. Right. Like, that's not what this is supposed to be. It should be everyday guys who sees men pretending to be girls, going into his daughter's bathroom, saying, nope, I'm done with this. I don't care. I didn't go to college or pull out. Yeah, I'm done with this. We're changing this. And that's what politics, that's what our country was founded on, and that's what it should be. In the service aspect, here's what's interesting. Most people haven't been anywhere. This is a real problem in America. We're so culturally centric. We just haven't been anywhere. So if you saw that the Prime Minister of Australia is a 31-year-old white woman, people would be like, oh, she's so young. It's like, yeah, but compared to who? Like our people who are 100 years old and been doing politics for days? There's people all over the world running countries. Yep. About a third, let's say even a half, have already figured this piece out. Like, no, this shouldn't be a lifetime job. Yeah. Like, that's how it started in America. It was like people, it was almost like embarrassing to be like a politician. Like, wait a second, you're going to leave your business? You're not going to contribute? And so the fact that we have people go do that job for 70 some years and then complain about the results, that's the interesting thing that I'm so apolitical that it's like I dump on both sides. But one of the things I crack on Joe Biden about is like I watch these speeches that they make him say about how politicians have been crooked and done. And I'm like, if only you were in a position to affect that for the last 58 years, or however long he's been in. And it's just one of those things that's like, the fault is on us, though. Greedy people will be greedy. The fault is on us that we don't demand different. Yeah. And so when you look at... We're too busy watching basketball and all the other stuff. And that's why I've gotten so big on, especially about my junior year in high school, was our education over entertainment. Yeah. Like in your free time, like education over entertainment. That's what I teach my son. That's why I go around and I teach my clients, and I'm like, look, if you want to change your life, you have to start choosing education over entertainment. If you're going to go home and sit down and watch New Girl or whatever sitcom you watch, you could have watched a 30-minute podcast that might have changed your whole life. Let me give you something on that. I'm going to look this up here on my phone, so I'm not being rude.
We not a flex. I feel like one thing I've noticed about dealing with young people is you always gotta tell them, like, I'm not trying to dunk on you.
Yeah.
This really happened. This is not.
I don't have that.
Not you, but I'm talking to people. Listen,
yeah.
This really happened. And what really happened is that I got to be in a room and have dinner with a guy named Div, not long ago. He's the youngest Indian billionaire in the history of the world.
Yeah.
What's the title of this email say? By the way, this is the email to myself that I talked about. What's the subject say?
This one over here?
Yeah.
Tips.
Div tips.
Yeah.
And so on your point, I asked Div, I do this with people, I'm like, all right, boil your thesis down to 5 things. Like, what are your things? His first one, read what that says.
You can learn your way out of any situation. Facts. Yeah.
This is a billionaire in India where there's a caste system who comes from a 1-bedroom, 8-person in an apartment that became a billionaire in a system where you're not even supposed to move up any social classes at all.
Yeah.
His number one tip, the first thing he said is you can learn your way out of any situation.
Wow.
How many of us think we need to money our way out of a situation? We got to do these other things out of a situation. Like, he's like, no, you can learn your way out of a situation. His second tip, track this metric. What did I not know last month, last year, etc.? And once I know that, why did I not know that until then? What was I not focused on where I should have learned? Where should I have learned that thing?
Right.
Constantly evaluating. If you believe you can learn your way out of any situation, then you have to get in situations where it's like, oh, I didn't know that, and evaluate, when was I supposed to know that? And what did I do instead of learning that? I watched Gilmore Girls. Instead of doing that, I watched the Spurs play the Golden State Warriors.
Right.
And he's like, if you can train yourself to measure those things, then like the other stuff comes. Two other things that don't really apply to what we're talking about, but the next thing was everything that exists is right now is 1.0. That's what I was talking about yesterday.
Yeah.
The flyest stuff that we have in 10 years will look like shit. So people are thinking they need the new idea. You don't. What you really need is to look at stuff that exists and figure out where's the easiest flip from 1.0 to 2.0. By the way, that's what he did. He realized that GoDaddy and Domain.com had bought all the like user licenses for like putting your website up.
Yeah.
The way they did it was different because it was America, but essentially what he did is realize India was going to go online at some point, and he bought he bought every website basically.
Wow.
No one could buy a website and not do business with Div.
Yeah. No, that's smart. Yeah.
And so part of that is like, realizing like, okay, wait, as soon as like India was late to cell phones and all of that stuff, but what's the next iteration of that? It's web and mobile. As soon as you get everybody with one of these in their hands, it's got to go online. Yep. And he was like, this is the 1.0. Everyone was in a race to get in the cell phone game and intercom and all that stuff. He's like, no. I'm going to lay the net and eventually they'll just come to me. And he owned every possible combination of stuff. So I've done that before too. He got wiped out in 2020, so he's not going to run, but I own Cory Booker 2024. I own sometimes I'll just think of something and buy that domain.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, this might be a thing. Like, I'll buy that domain. Buying right now there's an opportunity. This is free game. Somebody could do this and probably make some money. Anything that exists now will actually eventually have a .nft. So like somebody, and they may have already done some of this, like Citigroup probably owns one of theirs, but there's somewhere in there where you could find like a big business, like a Netflix.nft. There might be one of those big whales out there that somebody could buy that website on right now. Yeah. Everything will move to a .nft. I'm not a crypto guy at all, but the way the blockchain will work, and it has to be on that. It can't be on .coms. There's a whole bunch of nerd shit that goes into that. But like, there's hustlers that are going to make money by buying up these new domains that emerge, .ios and .nfts. It'll be just like the .com. Well, that guy Div basically did that for all of India. Wow. Like everything that was going to be fly that existed, everybody had to buy their website from him. And then the last thing was this is, when there's nobody in a space, this is what entrepreneurs think, nobody's doing this. He's like, that means there's no money there. There's money in all the spaces that make money. There's no money in all the spaces that don't make money. So a lot of times young people or people early in their journey in entrepreneurship are like, I got it. I got my idea. Nobody's even doing this.
There's a reason why.
There's a reason why. The smartest people on earth know nobody's doing it either.
Yeah.
And so that was a kind of interesting plug on the Div thing, the way you talked about like how education and entertainment. Again, is he more important than any of us? No. But this dude became a billionaire in a system where he was supposed to have exactly a 1-bedroom apartment like his mom and dad had. society was set up for him to have that happen.
Yeah.
And he was able to do that by 2 core principles. One, believing that you can learn your way out of any situation, not buy your way out, not skill your way out, not anything. You can learn your way out. And then number 2, understanding that like what you don't know now is a metric you need to track.
Right.
And then you've got to really assess, why didn't I know what, instead of learning that, what did I do instead? And it allows you to close these gaps that you have in like entertainment versus being educated.
Right. No, that's fire. I'm gonna need to remember those.
Big diff.
Yeah, the first one is you can learn your way out of every situation. That's deep. That's deep. I agree. I think that's one of the reasons why I started doing what I was doing is because I'm not saying I'm Moses, but I like to like look at the Moses story. A kid, he was born in a situation where they were killing all the male babies. His mother put him in the water, had to go live with the Egyptians, grew up on the other side of the lake, per se, and then came back and saved you know, and I'm not saying, like I said, I'm not saying I'm Moses, but like being adopted, being taught all of the things that I've been taught, I feel like it would be shame on me to not take my blessings and teach people.
We're talking about yesterday. It's a duty.
Right.
The right people think of it as a duty. This is what's interesting about people that need mentorship is they're often hesitant. It's very hard sometimes to connect with ultra successful people, but once you do, there's very little friction on getting the game. And then also they know what game to give you. The hard part is we come into those conversations a lot of time with like, I need you to teach me about X, Y, and Z. And it's like, no, you probably don't. There's an ancient samurai saying that's really apropos to what improve most people's lives. When you talk about like meditation or just thinking about thinking like I was talking about, it's that if you know the way broadly, you know it entirely. Like think about the same way that you get good at basketball or a TikTok dance is the same way you get good at coding. If you know the way generally on life, what does it take for anything to be successful? That's what people need to spend time on thinking about, and then also in their mentorship. Unfortunately, we start drilling down to like 100 feet. We got to be more at 30,000 feet and think about like, how does anything work? How do I get good at anything? If you know that, then you can unlock all this stuff.
Doors,
yeah, because the way broadly is also the way directly. Like when you generally know how people have got successful, there's not a huge variance in the success story of an Elon, of a Bob Johnson who owned BET, or even of a guy like Mike Ilitch who became a billionaire from selling pizza. Yeah. All of those are very different things, but the way they broadly did it really will scale down. If you put the another best decision to the 30th best decision, if you charted all of those, there's huge overlap in those first 30 of what they did. And the hard part is most of us don't get taught on any of that. We either get taught stuff very specifically or we're listening. One of the things that's very hard for me to resist is I see a lot of advice on the internet that sounds fly. And it's like, oh no, that's the loser stuff. Yeah. Or people that think they understand. There was one guy, he put out there that LeBron signed $1 billion lifetime deal, and that's a bad deal, and it's basically like the slavery mindset. It's called the plantation mindset, and he's used the term called Overton window, which is a very fancy, legitimate finance thing. And in it, he was explaining, he says that Nike makes whatever number billion per year, and they gave him $1 billion. And all of the numbers he were using was in sales. Yeah. And it was all sales. It wasn't footwear. And inside of that, it didn't have any of like the expectations of what the actual gross receipts and footwear would be compared to the cost of production, compared to the cost of shipping, compared to the cost of licensing, compared to none of it was net. And all of these people in the comments were like, damn, LeBron's a sucker. And I'm like, damn. You idiots. Yeah. Like you listen to a guy who got the number wrong on what Nike makes, and he doesn't even know the difference between gross and profit. And of course it's a great deal. LeBron's made $1 billion. It's literally the biggest deal that's ever been done. And here you got a guy that's telling people that this is a shitty thing because we have a slave mindset and it's Overton window. It only sounds fly to people with no money. And it's like, the thing he's saying to you, it only sounds fly to people with no money, he's doing. He's giving you the explanation that wealthy people or educated people could poke a billion holes into. And so that's the kind of stuff that drives me nuts because it's the best time ever to be alive. You can get educated on it. You can look up what does Nike make in footwear sales. Yeah.
It's there.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can look up like who's made the most money, what's the biggest footwear deal ever. You know, and it's wild to me that I think we're wired to, we want the contrarian opinion. We want people to be like, we want to feel like we have this niche information. Like, oh, all you think people think that's a dope deal. No, that's an idiot deal.
Yeah.
And then when we hear it parroted back, it's like, damn, I don't want to challenge that because that sounds like some insider information. But it's like, man, pick up your phone. You could just figure this out. But, you know, we don't want to do the research. What did I say about even any number I give? Look that shit up.
Right.
See if I'm right about the Ku Klux Klan starting public education in Jackson, Michigan.
Yeah.
Check it.
You should want to, though. You should not
For
want
sure.
You shouldn't want to just take somebody off of their word and what they say, because they easily could have just sat there and lied to your face and made
It
up.
doesn't even have to be with bad intent.
Right. No, exactly.
It's a lot of numbers and stuff going on. That's why even when I said, like, I don't know what had happened earlier, but I tried to catch it and clean it up with like generally, or as far as I remember.
Yeah.
Because over time, the stories get different.
Right.
You know? I tell you this, I was a lot better at football in my mind 5 years ago than I was 10 years ago.
Right.
And, you know what I mean? Like over time, the stories change and stuff.
Yeah,
you know? Everything looks different over time. You know, if you let me tell a couple wrestling stories now. I'm the one that ended the Cold War in the 90s. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. And so we're prone to do that, even if it's not intentional or self-serving.
Right.
We get stuff wrong, and that's okay.
Yep.
We should live in a society where people make missteps. And do you remember what I said about being in the young people business yesterday? I'm in the young people business, and because of that, I have to be in this business too. The forgiveness business.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Because I'm in the young people business, I have young people's lives, and I'm talking about. It's weird because I know these dudes are giants, but like, I deal with a guy who's a 23-year-old NFL draft pick in the first round, and he might be 6'7", 300 pounds. To me, he's a young person. He's a baby. Like, and that's just the way my mind works. When I'm talking about being in the young person business, makes me in the forgiveness business, people make mistakes, and young people make a ton of mistakes. And then this is the part everyone leaves out. Young people should make a ton of mistakes.
Right.
You should be moving through life with such urgency and kind of such like regard. There's some that you shouldn't make because the consequences are too high. But you should dabble in this and that and other and see, you know, how hot is the stove really?
Right.
Because there is reward for being bold
right.
and taking some of those risks. But if you want to mentor someone successfully, you have to be in the forgiveness business. Because they're going to say they're going to be there at 4 o'clock and forget. Yeah. They're a young person. Right. They're going to make the mistake. I told you not to talk to that girl and you did. Now look at you. They're going to make a mistake. You know, you took that $50. Like, we saw that shit. Right? People are like, oh, I can never trust a thief. Like, you know, like, you're either in the forgiveness business or you're not. Right. And
well, so do you think some people forgive too much? Like where do you, so like for you, where do you draw the line at? That's 8 mistakes. Like, I'm done with you. Like, where do you draw that?
It's hard because there's nuance to it. I don't think there's an answer to it. Like, people talk about like, oh, you can never trust a thief. And it's like, I don't know. I used to steal shit. Right. I used to kick in people's doors. Right. I shot guns at people. Like, that had their family, like there's families in the other cars. You know what I mean? That really happened. This is not pretend. And then I became this person too. It goes back to the question of who am I really? Which guy am I really? Yeah. I know this. All I can really take from that is if you put me in the neighborhood and I want a pair of Jordans, I'm going to get them. Yeah. If you got them or the store has them or whatever. Right. You know what I mean? If I didn't have lunch today and you show me a $5 bill, I'm taking that from you. And you're going to have to get it back from me. Oh, my brother or somebody. Cool. Somebody's got it. You're not going to do it. Right. And so I know that both things are inside of me, and it's just really about, thank goodness, like people were in the forgiveness business with me. Right. And what we often want to do, it goes back to so many things. We often treat people that are just like us worse than people treated us. Like the people that do just exactly what we do. Oh, that dude always lies. You always lie, motherfucker. Yeah. Like, oh, that person's always like, you're always like, we want to treat the people that feel like us, that are reciprocating on us, we treat them worse. Like we expect more grace from people that do the exact same mistakes that we make than we give. Yeah. You know, we do that like, oh, she knows she shouldn't have texted that guy back. and we got 5 of them going on like that.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's that's part of. Again, it goes back to what they told me at 21, 22. You know, it depends on the kind of mistake. A woman or a guy that's still making the mistake of texting an ex or something at 30, that's different than at 18. You know, there's nuance to it.
Right.
You know, like the thieves or stealers or liars, all of that stuff. I know I'm capable of all of the worst things. And so, like, how can I not let one of these babies slide on some of these things that they do, right? Son's breaking, if somebody breaks into my house, I'm not trying to even be on no tough guy shit. Somebody breaks on my house, they're going to pay with their life or they're going to kill me.
Right.
That's a mistake that they can't make.
That's not tough guy shit. That's being a man.
Yeah.
That's being a man.
Yeah, they're going to have to kill me because I'm going to kill them.
Right.
But other than that, every other mistake,
yeah.
You steal my car or something like that, I'm not the press charges guy or whatever, you know what I mean? Again, unless I'm in it or my family's in it. But you take, like, if you're not threatening my direct security, there's wiggle room because I'm going to be pissed and then I'm eventually going to be like, I used to do that. Like, I have this alter ego that's almost like it's like an accountability robot. Like, oh, that dude lies. You do too. Like, it immediately just kicks in like, that dude lied to all those people when he was young. Oh, you did too. Oh, that kid just stole all that. You did too. That kid, like, he disrespects his mom. You did too. You know, like, my brain is just wired like with this instant accountability on some of that stuff. And that's helped me be in the forgiveness business. But more than that, I have a redemption story, I feel like, that I didn't do. People redeemed me. Like, I got the at-bats that my sister Kendra, who passed away, didn't. Somebody else did this for me. So how can I not be in the yes business? Like, drive over here, do this podcast, or do all the, you know, like, I texted back every single person that stood in that line yesterday and met me afterwards. That takes like 35 minutes, but what is that in the grand scheme of things? That's nothing.
Yeah.
It's nothing. Because I want to be in the, I don't know what people's story they're going through, and they might be able to learn something from someone who can be transparent. The one thing about having a couple of bucks and having a little walking around money, the one privilege it does give you is honesty. There's no one that can get me out of here for any, like, you know, I'll just go make more, I'll go do something else, make money. Like, we're not, I'm not in the scarcity mode in any way right now, fortunately. So the skills I have now allow me to tell the truth on stuff.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Well, we got to get you to your flight.
Yes.
To the airport. I hate to cut this off. I'm having a blast. We'll have to do this again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had fun. But I appreciate you coming and doing this with me.
You know my favorite thing, by the way? We didn't even really get into the NFL stuff. This is what I would rather talk about. You asked a question earlier on, what would I want to talk about? We just did that.
Yeah, yes, sir.
You know, really talking about how do we serve people? How do we help young people? And, like, you know, if I get on this plane now and somebody asks you, what do you do? I tell them a teacher.
Yeah.
And they usually won't follow up with questions on that. But if I get on, I'm like, oh, I work with the NFL. Like, it's like, And that taught me a lot about people.
Yep.
That they give you respect based on what you do.
Yeah.
And so when I meet people, I actually never ask them what they do.
Yep.
Like, I just ask them a question, where are you from? Where are you from? All right, like, what do you like about going to that small? Blah, blah, blah. What are you reading?
Yep.
Like, all of the stuff that can help me. Asking somebody what they do, it can't really help them at all.
No.
And again, I'm open to, we talked about a couple deeper things on the way over here. I'm open to being wrong on some really big stuff in life. And so I have to have this little curiosity about just different stuff. You know, you know how it is. You walk in a room and somebody's got that jazz with them. It's like, oh, they step different. They got electricity. Like, let me ask questions about how this person became that person. And that's where the value was. So I hope this helped people.
Where can people follow you at?
I'm loosely on social media. I'm on Instagram at Encore _Kurtis ENCORE _KURTIS, and on Twitter, again, loosely, like 300 or 400 lifetime tweets at Motown Kurtis KURTIS, all one word. Motown Kurtis, one word.
Yes, sir. Once again, I appreciate it, man. So
or just go to Jacob's page and look me up.
Oh yeah, you can do that too. But I appreciate all y'all coming. Y'all had a blast. Make sure you check out our website, YouTube channel, get all the old podcasts. Follow us on Instagram. We're about to drop hoodies and t-shirts, so you want to get all those. So make sure you follow us, subscribe. Appreciate it. Appreciate you again.
For sure, man.
Y'all keep it real. Thank you.
Y'all keep it